Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to this special telecast on Sansad TV. I am Teena. Tensions between India and Pakistan reached a critical peak in the last few days, following the neighbouring country's sharp escalation in response to India's Operation Sindoor. In the face of provocation, our armed forces have once again demonstrated not just their unmatched readiness, but their unwavering resolve in navigating a national security crisis with precision and strength. At such a time, it becomes imperative to hear from those who've played significant roles in shaping our defence strategies and steering them through complex geopolitical waters. So joining us for a conversation today is Vice Admiral Satish Namdev Ghormade, retired, former Vice Chief of Naval Staff. He's a decorated officer whose nearly 4-decade-long career has been marked by strategic clarity, operational excellence and a deep commitment to India's self-reliance in defence. Admiral, thank you very much for your time. Welcome to Sansad TV.
Thank you very much.
So viewers, from formulating the Indian Navy's maritime capability perspective plans to pioneering over 115 indigenous innovations, Admiral Ghormade has consistently put the nation first, reinforcing India's maritime strength and readiness, particularly in volatile environments like the Indian Ocean region. So as India navigates evolving challenges and assertive neighbours, Admiral Ghormade's insights and experience will help us explore India's security landscape and how leadership, innovation and foresight can safeguard national interests, shaping a stronger, more resilient India. Let's begin the conversation with the current context. Given the escalation that we witnessed from Pakistan's side following Operation Sindoor, all of us are curious to know about the Indian Navy's role in how we've responded to the misadventure by Pakistan. Also, as a veteran, how would you assess the Indian Navy's role in deterrence and preparedness?
The moment this incident, the barbaric incident of 22nd April happened, Indian Navy was deployed in the North Arabian Sea in a deterrent and a dissuasive posture.
Right.
The carrier battle group, the advanced frigates, destroyers, the corvettes, the submarines and aircraft along with the air element were deployed in a manner, in a posture that actually prevented the Pakistan Navy to even venture out and at times be bottled up in their own harbours. Okay. So this actually gave one area for the Pakistan, closed that particular distinct feature, so that they could not open that front. So the role of the Navy actually was, from that point of view, very, very essential, because the maritime trade and all the supplies of oil come from the sea for Pakistan. So if that is blockaded, then it affects their war machinery.
You know, one thing that has come to the fore, and especially we are seeing how modern warfare in context of drones and missiles having taken center stage, that was demonstrated in the tensions and the recent developments that have taken place between India and Pakistan. How is the Indian Navy adapting to the increasing prominence of cyber and space domains, particularly in modern warfare?
Indian Navy actually, I would say, is a combat ready, credible, cohesive and a future-proof force.
Absolutely.
So that we did about 4 or 5 years back, coined this theme for Indian Navy. Earlier we used to have a theme every year, but then when we got this theme, we continued with it, because we knew that this is something which will be required, that the Navy should be future-proof at all times. And towards this, Navy has been making its maritime capability perspective plans looking 30 years ahead and making a 15-year plan. In that, cyber warfare and space warfare were already built in almost 10-15 years back. So we've built in our capabilities in cyber and space, because the Indian Navy was one of the first to get the communication satellite in 2014.
Right.
And that really made our communications much better, and also made sure that all information, our data exchange happened at a much faster rate. Now cyber warfare, of course, is an extremely important facet, and which is something which is happening throughout. And that's why the armed forces actually were looking for a cyber command. Right. And however, a defense cyber agency was set up in 2019, and which is headed by a naval officer and has a tri-service element, and this has given an impetus to the cyber capabilities of the integrated all three services, and all three services have the cyber capabilities now. And Navy has been up and above about thinking about cyber warfare, because this is something which we anticipated. And the moment these operations started, that is one is the 22nd April attack. After that, the Pakistan, ISI and other countries were launching cyber attacks on us, and those were prevented because we were prepared.
So I think all our preparations over the years in terms of anticipating what the futuristic challenges will be has really helped us sort of steer through this huge challenge. A related question, and because artificial intelligence is something which is everywhere, it has taken center stage in every domain. AI and autonomous systems are also reshaping combat. So if I may ask you about the Indian Navy's preparedness in integrating the unmanned platforms.
Very true. I think that's a very, very relevant and very important aspect. And artificial intelligence and unmanned systems again have been part of our system for quite some time. And what we have done is in 2022 we made an unmanned roadmap, which was released by the Raksha Mantri. We had started working few years back on that, but we released an unmanned roadmap for the Indian Navy, in which what is the unmanned teaming, and which we use in our which we operate from our carriers also. That is MUMT is the MUMT concept. So that is one, and we are in for use the unmanned vehicles, both in the air, surface and underwater. So in all these spheres we have a roadmap, and that we have also shared it with the industry, because we want the commercial or the private industry to come up with solutions. And this is where we have gone actually full ahead, because that is the way the warfare is growing. And then we have seen the Russia-Ukraine war, the Armenia-Azerbaijan war, then in the Israel-Hamas, the use of the drones and unmanned systems. So that is something which is an asymmetric warfare, which will be utilized extensively, and we were prepared for it, even for this particular stage.
So I'll come back to innovation and indigenization, because that has been your forte. I was reading your profile and I've seen how you took initiative in promoting and propagating Make in India, but that's for the later part of the program. I'll come back to the current context. And what worries us is not just our Western adversary, also the northern adversary. They've both come together, with China now explicitly backing Pakistan. What naval strategies or international partnerships should India now explore to stay strong for any kind of misadventure from these adversaries at sea? And because we have a long maritime coastal line, so the challenge for us is manifold when we are looking at two adversaries together.
Very true. Actually, the maritime front is a much larger sphere of space, yes, because the Indian Ocean region, that itself has got a swath of, if you see the length of almost 12,000 kilometers, and the area extends from the Persian Gulf to Malacca Strait, from west to east, and in the south up to Australia, yes, and southern Indian Ocean region. So this entire area is our primary area of operations, which we need to cover. So for this, the fact of the matter is we have to be strong ourselves. We may have partnerships, but the strength has to be inbuilt, and therefore our maritime capability perspective plan, which has a top-down, mission-based, capability-based, and threat cum capability-based approach to the force planning. Why I say top-down means we need what is the roles and mission the Navy will have to do 15 to 25 to 30 years ahead for the nation. So therefore, that will be the tasking of the Navy, and therefore it should have a capability of that manner. Then it is mission based, because we need to work for missions. And then it is capability based, that we look at capability as the paramount importance, that we build capabilities to meet the spectrum of warfare from low intensity conflict to a nuclear war. That means we need to have capabilities across the spectrum of warfare, and because threats will emerge and dissipate. So threats are not permanent, whereas capabilities are permanent, which will be built to meet any requirement. Absolutely. And therefore we give more thrust to capabilities, and based on this we approach our force structure planning. And the Navy has a long gestation period, because our platforms take 8 to 10 years to build, sometimes 5 years, sometimes some require more time, and therefore our thinking has to be, and when a platform is inducted, it continues to be in service for 30 years. That means it should be relevant 30 years later also. Therefore our advancement and thinking has to be in that direction. So we, while considering this, we consider the northern neighbor and the western neighbor all the time. And in the maritime front, we have another set of extra regional powers and other maritime interests which other nations have got. So we have to ensure, we need to protect our maritime interests, our national maritime interests, and protect our trade. And our economy is built on the trade, which comes from the sea. Therefore, whether it is oil or other trade, that needs to be protected, and we need to make sure that our long coastline is also safeguarded. So, and the islands are safeguarded.
So you've been at the helm of strengthening these capabilities until recently. If you could elaborate further and perhaps be more specific about some of the initiatives that you undertook to strengthen India's maritime presence in the Indian Ocean region, at the same time prepare us to not just deal with the conventional threats but also the grey zone war tactics.
Yeah, so we had initially in 2017, we had considering the area we need to be deployed and monitor, we started the mission based deployments, in which we have choke points in the Indian Ocean region, the Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, then Malacca Strait, Sunda Strait, and the central Arabian Sea. So in this place we placed our ships, positioned our ships throughout. And with this we are able to monitor and do surveillance of any ship entering the Indian Ocean region. And with this we are able to monitor, not only monitor entry and exit of ships, but also any emerging situation we were able to tackle. For example, if there was a intelligence regarding drugs or drug trafficking, then we were informed and we have been able to catch those. If there was a HADR requirement, or where there was an emergency, where there was a medical emergency on foreign ships, we are able to act. If there were piracy attempts, we are able to act. And Indian Navy was one of the most active in the last 2 years to ensure that the piracy which emerged again off Somalia, which had died down because of Indian Navy's actions from 2008, again emerged, and even the Red Sea crisis, we were able to escort ships. In cases of natural calamities, when there was cyclonic storms, we were able to assist ships. For example, in 2018, there was a storm which hit Bangladesh, and almost 33 fishermen were in water, but our ship was at sea at that particular stage, and we were able to rescue this 33 fishermen from Bangladesh.
No, it's remarkable that although not much is spoken about the challenges that you face at sea, what India has been doing is not just maintaining a strong maritime presence, but also ensuring that it comes out as a first responder to those in need in the Indian Ocean region. How critical then is the role of maritime intelligence in not just dealing with these challenges, but also something that gives India a strategic edge against the adversaries at sea?
Oh, very important, because maritime domain awareness is an extremely important issue, and to that effect the Indian Navy with Indian Coast Guard and other maritime agencies, to cover this area, we set up the Information Management and Analysis Center in Gurugram. That collates entire information of Indian Ocean region and shares information. And in 2018, we started this IMAC in 2014, and in 2018 we set up Information Fusion Center, Indian Ocean region, where we've started the Indian Ocean region countries as members, and part of the officers from these countries are ILOs, International Liaison Officers in IFC IOR. Now here we collate the entire picture from our coast and Indian Ocean region through inputs through satellites, through LRIT, through space-based, and also many the inputs from the merchant shipping and various other inputs. Now these inputs are collated and provided to the maritime fraternity. Now this has become an excellent information, especially in case of the cyclonic storms or natural calamities, informing the fishermen, informing the merchant ships, any piracy attempts, armed attacks. So these have been prevented. Now this we have presently about 14 ILOs from different countries in this place, and we are able to share information very freely. We are able to share information with the Information Fusion Center in Singapore. And now this, when you are talking about maritime intelligence, this is all about the information which is available, and the national maritime domain awareness picture is created, which is shared with mariners and friendly countries when required, so that they are helped when they require. In this we have been very much proactive, and the ships and the other agencies are also finding this arrangement an excellent arrangement.
And what we've witnessed over the last few days is the remarkable strength of a number of indigenous weapons and missiles, which have helped us ensure that our population, is not affected, and that we are able to dent the adversary's intent. When I was, told that I have to interview you, when I was going through your profile, I found something very interesting. You said you've always held firm to the belief that India can make what India needs. So what inspired, to begin with, your strong belief in the motto that India can make what it needs, and then how did it shape your decisions in service? These decisions are today helping us steer through these challenges. So if you could elaborate on these 2 points.
Yeah, this is extremely important, that actually I believe that India can make what India wants, because of the capability that is existing in our Indian industry, and the young generation and the scientists fraternity which we have, and the academic fraternity, because of the Indian Navy has been looking for progressing indigenization and innovation to a great extent. At an early stage, because of being technically more technically savvy service, we have to deal with technical knowledge, and now we have also introduced P.Tech as a compulsory requirement for all naval officers who join Indian Navy, to get that technological edge. To this extent, I was fortunate actually to serve in the Plans Directorate in my younger years. I had done my staff course in US and come back and worked in the plans and handled the budget. So when you handle the budget, you know all the schemes go through because the finances matter for everything. And then I came back again in the Plans Directorate after my sea time, operational time, etc. And also had opportunity to work in the operations and the HR. So with this experience, when I became the Vice Chief, with all the experience which was built up and the experience I had learned, we had thought that we need to do something for our nation in the innovation side. And Atmanirbharta being a very important clarion call also given by the leadership, it was important that we try and do something. So we had thought right in the beginning that if we want to achieve something different, then we had to do things differently. And therefore, I had a very small team which was the Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization and Technology Development and Acceleration Cell, a small team of 4 officers. But they were very I would say they had lots of initiative and were thinking much ahead. So they had come up with a brilliant idea that in 2022, when we were celebrating the 75th year of independence, that why not induct 75 new technologies in 1 year into the Indian Navy. So when this thought came, I said it may be difficult, but let's try it. And with all the background, I think we said let's go ahead. And we requested the Prime Minister that if you could launch 75 challenges for Indian Navy. And Prime Minister agreed to do that. In July 22, 75 challenges were launched for Indian Navy, that within 1 year you need to get indigenously innovative technologies, new technologies from Indian industry. So it was a task which we thought was difficult, but since we had thought that we must do it, we went around the industry, sent people, young officers around, and you will believe me, within 2 months of the challenges launched by the Prime Minister, we had 1106 proposals from Indian industry for 75 challenges. That's the capability of our Indian industry.
I think
and that really proves that India can make what
absolutely. It's that direction that that helped you champion the adoption of over 115 indigenous technologies and products within the Indian Navy.
This 1106 proposals, when it came, we had to then sort them out. So we set up an office in IIT Delhi, where our officers, young officers, sat day in and day out and examined the proposals, because there were proposals which had a terrific idea but a terrible presentation, and there were terrible ideas but terrific presentations. So we had to really check out which is the best out of it. Then I actually shortlisted 330, and it is really remarkable that we were able to get 115 contracts signed and 115 technologies, out of which 40 products are almost coming out, and out of these 10 to 12 are world's first, which were first time, we must say, these capabilities which have been developed.
So Admiral, before we proceed, let me congratulate you for not just surpassing the targets, but bolstering India's naval capabilities and how. But in the current context, and given the surmountable challenges that India has, how do you see the role of innovation and self-reliance evolving in India's self-defense strategy, something which we have just witnessed, but we have to strengthen further in due course of time?
No, it's extremely important at this time, and in fact from 2009 onward, 2019 onwards, when the innovation in defense excellence challenges were launched, and these were launched by the Prime Minister Modi for the defense services, that these challenges were for startups and entrepreneurs to come up with new ideas and bring in capabilities for the armed forces. These have picked up a lot, and the ones which we said 115, which came were part of these IDEX challenges only. So that gave it a further boost to this in 2022. Now almost over 400 such challenges are in the making, and lots of them have also fructified into products for Army, Navy and Air Force. So lots of work is happening by our startups, MSMEs and entrepreneurs, and we have a very, very young and dynamic set of startups who can do great jobs, I must say. They just need to be supported. They need to be, the environment should be made much more conducive, environment should be made for them to work better, and the processes must become much more simpler. That means wherever we could cut down on the bureaucracy and make sure that the decision making is swifter and meriting, wherever the meriting person is there, that must be given the due weightage, and this will help us develop capabilities which are required in this type of asymmetric warfare to deal with an enemy which we recently dealt with. There will be distributed warfare, there will be multi-domain warfare, and distributed even warfare in not only land but in maritime front. So therefore these type of warfares, you need capabilities to meet for every task and every mission, and therefore here technology, artificial intelligence and everything which is required will be put to test.
So I'll be more specific on the kind of efforts that may be required in the times to come. You've been in a leadership position, you know the system, you know the challenges well. What should be our top priorities in terms of large-scale modernization which may be required to specifically deal with these challenges?
Yeah, so the most important factor thrust we need to give it is manufacturing in India. We need to innovate, we need to indigenize, but we must manufacture all these things in India. And we must become the largest manufacturing base for this capabilities. Once we manufacture all these well and we create an environment to ensure that that happens, then we would be much more self-reliant. Because there will be some technologies we will take from abroad, but the issue is that once we start doing it ourselves, then we have the capability to ramp up production when required. Now, we need these capabilities to meet such an unreliable enemy. So we need to continuously innovate and see that. And glad that our air defense systems were really prepared to tackle the amount of drone attacks and the missile attacks which came from that side. We need to deal with a 2.5 front. We need the northern neighbor, we need the maritime front, we need to look at internally some issues which need to be sorted out, and therefore these capabilities will really help for surveillance, for ensuring the cyber capabilities. We should look at information warfare, and we need to have kinetic and non-kinetic means to
So as someone who's crafted major capability roadmaps for the Indian Navy over the years, you've built 41 out of 43 ships in Indian shipyards to commissioning INS Vikrant. In your view, how close is India to achieving self-reliance, especially in context of naval capabilities?
So the Navy is progressing very well, and our whole aim in the Navy has been that in 2047, when India will be a developed nation, which is Viksit Bharat, Indian Navy will be fully Atmanirbhar. That's the aim. So the process is going to be not easy, but it has to be a continuous, persistent effort which needs to be taken forward. The effort is really on. The government policies are really in the right direction. What we need is to implement. We need to continue to take decisions. We need to take bold decisions in ensuring that the entire environment, that means the ecosystem of defense innovation and indigenization, is given a thrust where the services, the academia, the industry, and the entire MSMEs and startups come together and make sure that we build the capabilities. So for this, we need to have a top-down and a bottom-up approach, in which we need to have a defense technology council which consists of the academia, the industry, the services, and even the R&D agencies together. They come together and formulate what India needs in capabilities.
So how are we promoting public-private synergy? The Prime Minister often talks about how they need to collaborate more effectively for best results. And you also spoke about how we need to have that kind of synergy and participation from the private sector to drive innovation. So if you could talk to us about some of the efforts or initiatives that you know about, which are great examples of public-private synergy in strengthening our military capabilities.
Yeah, no, lots of efforts have gone in strengthening the public-private synergy, but more needs to be done, I must say, because private industry is the key to success now. We have built institutions like PSUs and DPSUs who are doing a good job, but the amount of the decision making there takes time, whereas the agility and flexibility of the private industry actually needs to be utilized. And over the period, the commercial world has grown leaps and bounds ahead. In fact, the way the technology advancement has taken place, the private industry is much ahead in many spheres, and that needs to be utilized by the public sector. So therefore, the strength of the infrastructure of the public sector can be utilized. Because that's been built over the last 70 years, we have a strength of infrastructure, we have the R&D labs with the public sector. But the agility of work which is done by the private sector, the startups, entrepreneurs, and the way they are able to think much faster, and the technology, that needs to be utilized. And therefore, greater access has to be given to the public sector infrastructure, to the private industry, the entrepreneurs, the financial systems in which the checks and balances are perfectly required and auditing is required, but they need to also come up to speed to ensure that decisions are taken much faster, to ensure that the capabilities are built. And therefore, we need to not have too many checks and balances and too many times checks which only create delays.
We hope that the current situation will help us to look into those areas and expedite the process, as you rightly suggested. Admiral, although this conversation was supposed to focus more on the contemporary situation, the India-Pakistan tensions, and how we are enhancing our operational capabilities, especially in the maritime domain, but I'm still going to ask you this question because it's not every day that I'll get to sit in front of the Vice Admiral under whom the INS Vikrant was commissioned. So, talk to us about the commissioning of INS Vikrant, the maiden landing of indigenous LCA Navy, which in Indian military's history are seen as watershed moments. What do these milestones mean for India's strategic autonomy at sea and in terms of bolstering our image, our capabilities for all our adversaries in the Indian Ocean region?
Yeah, so Indian Navy has been working on indigenous shipbuilding since 1960s. We had one first ship, INS Ajay, commissioned in 1960. Thereafter, we had the Leander class, then we had the Godavari class, then Brahmaputra class, then the Delhi class, and Shivalik class. But the top of the icing has been the construction of the indigenous aircraft carrier, which we got initial start in 1999. But with approvals and with the complete effort, we built up that steel was also manufactured in India. The Indian Navy and DRDO worked together and manufactured. So the indigenous aircraft carrier, I was fortunate that right from the beginning when it started and when it was commissioned, I was in the service and I happened to be the vice chief when it was about to be made ready. So that time we put in a lot of effort, the whole team, and it was a difficult task in getting all things together, but I think it worked out in a very cohesive and integrated manner that we were able to commission the first indigenous aircraft carrier, which was commissioned by Prime Minister Modi on 2nd September 22. The ship has 76% indigenous content, yes, and it has got the most important, that how it helped the growth of Indian industry, that 500 MSMEs worked on it. There were 2,000 direct shipyard workers, 12,000 indirect workers from the ancillary industries, and items were taken from 18 states and union territories of India, which were put into the indigenous aircraft carrier. So this itself made us one of the 6 elite countries which have built indigenous aircraft carrier.
Would you like to talk about some of the challenges at the operational level or technical levels that you had to face, but how did you navigate through those challenges and make it happen, make India's first indigenous aircraft delivered and commissioned?
Yeah, so there were challenges, and I think the more important issue was synergy. That means we had to bring the number of agencies working together, had to work together towards the common aim of getting an operational aircraft carrier. So we had regular meetings, regular interactions, and everybody worked in that unison to achieve that aim. That we firstly not only had to build an aircraft carrier, but we had to operationalize it. That was more important, because when you're building a first of a kind, then the operationally it should be fully available and it should be able to go to war. That's the most important, operationally available. So therefore we had to test, and the trials had to progress in a particular manner with all agencies working together. And we had some of the content which we had to get from abroad also. So those agencies also had to work together. So that also happened. And then we had to operate an aircraft and ensure that an aircraft lands and takes off from the aircraft carrier, which is the main purpose of this. And we ensured that the indigenous made LCA Navy landed on this aircraft carrier and took off. That proved that an indigenous aircraft landed on an indigenous carrier operated by Indians, and the pilot also was Indian. So this actually gave us a tremendous capability and tremendous confidence that we can achieve what we want to achieve. So this I think has been a great achievement for the India as a nation and the Indian Navy.
I think that's the confidence that has reflected in the current situation as well, despite the volatile situation. It's that confidence which has kept us going, and the assurance from the leadership, from the military leadership, that nothing's going to happen, and we are more than prepared to deal with an adversary like Pakistan. You know, since we're talking about challenges, let me wind up the conversation by asking you about some of the biggest challenges that you foresee. And because you've brought in, you've spoken about your experience, about the efforts. In the long-term vision, what are the biggest security challenges for India, and how do you see that aligning with our immediate security needs as well?
Yeah, so the challenges we will continue to face is a volatile world, the VUCA world actually. So we will ensure, we'll have the instability which is in the world, the amount of wars going on, and the way the trade issues are affecting us. Here that challenges will meet us. At this time, India needs to be on a steady path of growth, and I think that's the complete direction our leadership is taking, that India must continue to progress. And the most important fact for India is the well-being and prosperity of our citizens, for which all work needs to be focused on that, for which we need to have a strong military. We need to have a strong deterrence value. Therefore, the Army, Navy, Air Force must grow in bounds and continue. And it is when the Army, Navy, Air Force grows, the technology which we bring in is also dual purpose, which is utilized in the commercial world. So therefore, it helps the economy in turn. So it is not that if we invest in defense that we will lose out the bread versus the butter versus guns argument. Here it helps in both ways. So therefore, we need to be strong militarily, we need to have a military strength, we need to go economically well and ensure well-being and prosperity of our citizens. That is where India must grow and be a developed nation. And I think with this, we need to just have nation first. If in every decision, if we look at nation first, the decision becomes right. Then it is good for the state, it is good for the men, it is good for the services, it's good for the
absolutely. Nation first is what is going to propel us towards becoming a Viksit Bharat, a developed India. Thank you, sir, for talking to us on different aspects, sharing your experience as Vice Chief of the Naval Staff, some of the efforts and initiatives that you undertook while you were at the helm of affairs, particularly in terms of indigenization and innovation. Also talking to us about the current roadmap and how we are steering through the contemporary challenges. At the same time, talking to us about what our long-term vision should be in dealing with the futuristic challenges. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you speak to us on Sansad TV. Thank you once again for taking our time and speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.